What's going on, everybody? It's PapaStones coming back with another video. So today, now that we have all legendaries spoiled for Jump to Lightspeed, I decided we should rank them in order from 20 down to number 1. We're going to jump right into this because this might take a little while, but I'll give a little explanations to my thoughts and let me know what you think down below if I'm off or on, whatever it may be. I'm going to preface this first by saying these are obviously just my opinions, and also I don't know if there's a lot of great legendaries in this set. Like, the set itself is really powerful, but a lot of the legendaries are not that fantastic, so we'll see though. We're going to start off at the bottom. We got Unity of Purpose. This is a 6-cost double green event that says for each friendly unit with a different name, give each unit you control +1/+1 for this phase. So the problems I have with this are you got to be in double green, right? Or you're paying 8 for it if you're not, I guess. You got to be in double green. It's each different unit with a friendly name, so it's not like you could just play Token Swarm and give everything a bunch of +1/+1. If it was even that, I think it might be okay. But with that having to be unique, you'll probably generally get everything. Maybe it's like +2/+2, maybe +3/+3. And then at that point, like, generally in the game, you're only, like, most commonly, you'll see, like, 3 units on board at most. And so, is it really worth it? Like, isn't Attack Pattern Delta just a better card in that sense? And that card doesn't see any play. And it only costs 3. So, yeah, I just really don't think this card has a home. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Next up, we got Scramble Fighters. This is a 7-cost green-black event. It says create 8 TIE Fighter tokens and ready them. They can't attack bases for this phase. I mean, I could see a world in, like, Exploit Dooku, right? Where you need 8 fodders to make something. But you're spending 7 to make 8 1/1s. Is that really worth it? Like, maybe if you have, like, Victor Leader out too, then you get 8 2/2s, but they can't attack base. But maybe it's annoying enough. I don't know. It just kind of seems underwhelming for something you could do for 7, especially when 7 drops, generally speaking, are some of the more powerful cards in the game. You know, think like Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, things like that. I'd almost always rather have those than 8 1/1s. So. And it's the turn right before Snoke comes out too, so you gotta think about that. That would be a blowout. Next up, we got Death Star plans. This one's kind of debatable. I think it could be higher, maybe not. I don't know. I don't enjoy it. It's a 2-cost upgrade, vanilla. It gives +0/+0 and says when attached unit is attacked, the attacking player takes control of the upgrade and attaches it to a unit they control. An attached unit gains the first unit you play. Each round costs 2 less. It's just, I generally speaking don't like cards that give your opponents benefits. And the fact that, like, there could be times where, say you have a spaceship, they have a ground, and then they play like an ambush spaceship, and they run into yours, and then they put this on their ground unit, and you don't have a ground unit. Now they get to keep this for a little while. Or you have to attack strange things to get discounts. I don't like the way this card seems to play. Maybe it'll be okay, I guess, but I don't see it really seeing any action. So next up at 16, we got Hondo Onaka. It's a 4-cost double blue. It's a 3/5 shielded, and on attack you may take control of a non-pilot upgrade on a unit and attach it to a different eligible unit. I think this card's kind of just bad. 3/5 isn't fantastic. The shield makes it okay, right? Taking control of a non-pilot upgrade. The only time this would be super cool, right, would be like stealing like a Darksaber or a General's Blade or something like that. But, I mean, I guess you could theoretically steal like a shield or an XP from someone. Maybe it has a place, but I just feel like for 4, it could be a better card most of the time, you know. Especially in double blue, if you're playing double blue, you could be playing Vigilance for 4. I mean, there's just better options, I think. And then even in like villainy, they have that new Krennic ship, right? That takes a token upgrade when played and when defeated, which would take a shield or a XP or whatever. At least it has immediate impact. This has none, so it's not great in my opinion. Next up, we got the Ghost. This is a 5-cost blue-white. It's a 5/6. It says each other friendly Spectre unit gains this unit keywords, while this unit's upgraded, it gains Sentinel. It's not a bad ship, right? But it's definitely only for Hera, and I feel like Hera will not be good enough to compete, so the Ghost kind of falls into that category of cards that will not do a whole lot of stuff. If somehow someone breaks Hera and makes it super good, this card will probably be in it, so there's that, but I just don't think it'll happen. Next up, we have Executor at number 14. This is an 11-cost green-black. It's a 12/12. It has Overwhelm, and when played on attack, when defeated, create 3 TIE Fighter tokens. I guess possibly in, like I said, in Dooku again, where you really need like fodder and stuff like that to exploit. But getting up to 11 resources to play a 12/12 that makes TIE Fighters isn't that crazy. I mean, I guess technically it makes itself immune to like Power of the Dark Side, but like one quick removal, you know, like a Fell the Dragon, a Vanquish, whatever it may be, even the not the Vanquish, the new version, the something only glory or whatever, that takes something and then defeats it. Like, you'd get turbo punished on that, right? Like, you made 3 TIE Fighters and played a 12/12. They played a 5-drop. They stole it, killed it, created their own 3 TIE Fighters. I don't know. This card doesn't do enough for a big ship. I think the payoff isn't worth it. Yeah, I don't enjoy it. Next up, we got Nebula Ignition. This is a 9-cost blue event that says defeat each unit that isn't upgraded. This could possibly have a home in blue hero control, but in blue villain control, this will never see the light of day. You would just play Super Laser Blast. Because, I mean, in some situations, I guess you could, like, upgrade some of your stuff that you don't want to die, or whatever it may be, you know, like, if you have ways to, like, say, like I'm thinking Rey specifically, right? Like, Rey gives out XP all the time, and then on 9 you need like a blast turn, right? But you have a bunch of units with XP, they won't die. But that also goes for your opponent. So like if they're playing pilots, if they're playing a shielded unit, a unit that gives XP, whatever it may be, and you don't end up clearing those units with this, it's going to feel awful. So like I said, in villainy, I think for sure you'll just play blast instead. In hero control, maybe it has a place, like, but I'm not sold on it. Next up, we got Home 1. Oh, what number are we at? Like 12 or something like that, I think. I honestly don't hate this card, but at the same time, I don't think it's that great. It's a 9-cost yellow-white. It's a Rebel vehicle capital ship. I guess that's not that important. 7/8. And if an opponent controls 3 or more space units, this costs 3 less to play, and it has ambush. If you can get it out for 6, a 6-cost 7/8 with ambush isn't that bad. Realistically, you probably won't get that very often unless someone's playing like a Space Swarm deck, like Darth Vader or something along those lines. It'll feel pretty awful because you won't want to pay 9 for this, because at 9 cost, there's definitely better cards out there. Maybe also in Akbar, if that gets relevant at all, you can give them tokens in space, right? And then get your home 1 cheaper. But I just don't think the conditions are good enough. But if they are, like if it's very unit focused and units aren't dying for some reason and spaceships all over the place, then home 1 might be better. But up front, I just don't see it. Next up, we have Darth Vader. I think this is a collector card. It's a 6-drop, red-black. It's a 7/7, and it pilots for 3 and gives +3/+3. An attached unit gains on attack. You may deal 1 damage to a unit. If a unit is defeated this way, you may deal 1 damage to a unit or base. I think the pilot on it's pretty good. I think the stats on it as 6 cost 7/7 are also not horrible. But if you're playing it as a 6 cost 7/7, it's a 6 drop that does nothing, right? No immediate impact on the game. The piloting, I think, will be the more viable option of the two, but you're paying 3 to give a unit deal 1 damage. Maybe there's a world, I'm just now thinking about this, you could put this in like a Django deck, possibly, just for the pilot aspect, because now your spaceship that has this on it becomes an exhaust, right? Yeah, maybe there's that. I might need to reconsider this one, honestly, with Django in mind, because I think this could slot into Django, possibly. Being able to buff your spaceships and give your exhausts basically permanently, right? You get your on attack, deal your damage kind of thing. Maybe it'll have a home there, actually, so I might reconsider this one. But other than that, I just don't think it does enough. Standalone-ish. Next up, we got Shadowcaster. It's a 6 cost. It's just red. It's a 4/7 that says when a friendly unit is defeated, you may use all of its when defeated abilities again. I was pretty high on this card to start, right? Because I was thinking Thrawn, and talking with one of my viewers and a couple of buddies too. It's got the same problem as a lot of the bad cards, right? It's a 6 drop, do nothing. Possibly if you have like a board set up with when defeated abilities, you can drop this and then run your when defeateds in. But like if you're behind or in a control matchup or whatever it may be, it could just end up being a 6 drop that doesn't do anything for you. And in red, especially in Thrawn 2, there is other options, right? You have Ruthless Raider, you have Chimera. Is it going to fully compete for the 6 drop spot? It's debatable. I think the card could still find its way in, but it is a little more questionable than I originally had considered. But yeah, it's not bad. I don't hate it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's 10, I think, or 11. 10 or 11, one of the two. Let's see, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so that was 11. So we're cracking the top 10 now. At number 10, though, we have Radiant 7. This is a yellow 7 cost spaceship. It is a 5/6. It says each enemy non-leader unit gets -1, -0 for each damage on it, and when played, deal 5 indirect damage to a player. I don't hate this card, but I don't love it either. I think there'll be decks that can make it work, right? Things that want to deal damage to other players' stuff. Honestly, I think I would swap this Invader now that I'm thinking about it a little bit more, but maybe not. Who knows? This card has potential, but at the same time, it could also just be a dead play. The stats are pretty bad for a 7 drop. I'm not quite sure if this has a home, but maybe it does. Who knows? Moving on to things I'm a little more sure about. We got Profundity. This is a 9 cost red-white spaceship. It is an 8/9 with Overwhelm and says when played and when defeated, choose a player. They discard a card from their hand. Then if they have more cards in their hand than you, they discard another card from their hand. So up front, I don't think this card's going to see a lot of action. However, I think if we get to a point in the meta where control makes comeback, I guess, this will for sure be in the sideboard. If not, a deck will be playing this in the main board to deal with control, because being able to discard anywhere from 2 to 4 cards on one card that also gives you an 8/9 body is sweet. I think it's definitely got potential, but it needs to be in the right meta. If it's aggro, just all aggro all the time, then this card will never see the light of day because it costs too much. But if people find ways to play around the aggro and go mid-range or control, then this card starts to bully them. So I think this card's good, but it's very meta dependent. Next up, we got Invincible. It's a 6 cost yellow black. It's a 6/6. It's a separatist, which is important, I guess. If you control a unique separatist card, this card costs 1 less to play. And when you deploy a leader, you may return a non-leader unit that costs 3 or less to its owner's hand. Obviously, this is designed for Trench, but as just a yellow card in general, if you're playing yellow separatist, you'll be able to play this for 5, and then it's basically a waylay when you flip your leader, so there is also that possibility of it being a benefit. But a 5 cost 6/6 spaceship is pretty solid. It's got super solid stats, right? And the fact that later on, if you're probably playing this with, separatists, if you have the choice. But if not, you're still playing. You could play it for 6 and then flip your leader, and then waylay something for free. Yeah, I like the concept of being able to get off a free waylay on a 6/6 body. It's kind of like a Cantina bouncer in a way, but I think bouncer's obviously a little better. But still, it's not a bad card. It's got potential, I would say. Next up, we got Han Solo. This is a 5 cost yellow white. It is a 4/5 with ambush, and it pilots for 2 as a +2/+3. And when played as an upgrade, you may attack with an attached unit. If it's the Millennium Falcon, it deals its combat damage before the defender. 4/5 ambush for 5 isn't that bad. It's not that good, but it's kind of okay, right? Like Bosk sees play, but Bosk has better actual text. I think you would be playing this more for the piloting aspect, but being able to give a Falcon shoot first is pretty sweet. It could answer a big spaceship. It also could just give you like a pump, right? Like it's a 2 cost. I don't want to say hot shot because hot shot's for ground, but kind of like hot shot. It's pay 2 and attach to a spaceship and attack with said spaceship, and you get +2/+3. So I think the piloting effect on it is pretty solid. It doesn't say you have to attack a unit. It just gives you the combat damage option for Falcons. So you could just use it as a pump in like an aggro style deck, which I think is worthwhile. So yeah, I think this card will probably see some action. We'll see though. Next up, almost to the top 5, I think. This one I was trying to get in there, but I think the other cards are better. This 6 and 5 I think are interchangeable in a sense, but we'll have to see. So at 6 here we have Turbo Laser Salvo. This is a 7 cost green event that says choose an arena. A friendly space unit deals damage equal to its power to each enemy unit in that arena. This card is like a slaughterhouse in a control deck. Generally speaking, you would play this later when you have a big unit, right? Like thinking Piet, they turn 6, they go Devastator. Turn 7, they go Turbo Laser Salvo and deal 9 to all units in said arena. Obviously, the fact that it's only one of the arenas is not as good, but the fact that it basically is a one-sided blast to that arena makes this card have some serious potential. I think there will be times, especially obviously again in mostly non-aggro matchups, but maybe even in aggro matchups if you can survive to 7 comfortably, where this card will just blow your opponent out of the water and set them so far behind. It's definitely one to watch out for, but also meta dependent. On to number 5, we have the Annihilator. This one's a little more debatable, but we're going to go over it. It's an 11 cost blue-black. It is a 12/12, and it says, when played, when defeated, you may defeat an enemy unit. If you do, search its controller's deck and hand for each card with that unit's name and discard them. The reason I like this card, obviously, same concept as the other big ships. If it's an aggro meta, this will never see the light of day. But if you're playing against control or mid-range, and you're playing this, say, not even in Piet. In Piet, you could pay 9 for this, which would be pretty sweet. You could also pay 10 for it. But as just a standalone 11 cost control card, being able to play this destroy something, and then you get to look through their deck and their hand. From a competitive aspect, being able to get all the knowledge that you could possibly need is so crazy. You get to play this. Say you're playing a control mirror. They played an Avenger. You play an Annihilator. You blow up their Avenger. You peep their hand. You get to see every answer they have in their hand still. And then you get to look through their deck and see what, like, if you don't already know, like, if you're not paying that much attention, you can look through the deck and you can tell every card they could possibly have for the rest of the game. The utility of this is insane, I think. I think, like I said, if it goes to a control-y / mid-rangey meta, that this card will be a house. If not, then it probably is just a sideboard, because the 11 cost is definitely not something you want to see when you can't get to that style of resource, but who knows. Next up, we got the Starhawk. This is a 9 cost green-white. It is a 6/9 spaceship. It has ambush, and while paying costs, you may pay you pay half as many resources rounded up. So at 9, green-white doesn't have a lot in general. Their best card most of the time in green-white is Home 1, which is an 8 cost, and Home 1 is still a house, obviously. But you get to 9 and you're kind of done. So now at 9, you could play this and then make your Home 1 next turn cost you 4, or make your 2 drops cost 1. You know, things like being able to cheat so many resources off of this being on the field is crazy. I think this kind of could give Han Green a push. I don't think it needs it that much, but like turns your U-Wings into 4 costs, you know, things like that. I think this card's crazy, honestly. It has to stick around, so that's kind of the only issue, right? Like if they end up putting it back in your hand, it feels bad. The only thing that kind of compensates is that it does have ambush, so if you play it again, it comes out and kills something else if they have spaceships, right? I just think this is a well-rounded card. Also, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but this kind of could put an Endless Legion style deck on a map in a sense. I'm not sure if it'll be any good, right? But you got to imagine you get to 9 resources, you play a Starhawk, and then next turn you can play Endless Legions out of aspect for 8. I'm just saying, I think there's crazy options there. Definitely something to toy around with. I will have to look into it a little bit more. But even without that, like I said, being able to discount your cards by half just opens up so many doors, and the fact it has ambush makes this card really solid. Next up, we got Stolen AT Hauler at number 3. It's a 3 cost yellow. It's a 4/5 that says when defeated, choose an opponent. For this phase, they may play this unit from its owner's discard pile for free. Obviously, this is designed for Kazuda specifically. However, I think that there will be a world where this card still sees play, even not in Kazuda, just because the stats are so crazy. Playing a 4/5 spaceship on turn 2 is nuts. You'll have to do dumb things with it, kind of like you do with, like, say, Evazon or Merc gunships or things like that. Like you maybe have to waylay it back to your hand after they steal it from you, or you could McClunky it if it's getting low, or whatever it may be, right? But in aggro style decks, playing a 4/5 for 3 is hard to beat. However, in like against control, you'll literally resource it every time, unless you're playing Kazuda, obviously, right? Because if they just, you play this, they claim, they play takedown, now they killed your 4/5, they get a 4/5, and you're way behind. So against control, you'll always resource it, right? As long as, like I said, unless you're in Kazuda specifically. Even in Kazuda, you would probably resource it for the same reason, right? Like, but still, I mean, against, like I said, control specifically, this card's bad. It'll just be a free resource for you. But against everything else, against other aggros, other mid range, whatever it may be, I think this card has good enough stats to outweigh the downsides, and you will just play around it in ways, right? Like, say, Cad Bane plays this and they McClunky it back when they think it's going to die, or say, what's it's called, plays it, an aggro yellow deck that's not Kazuda plays this, right? It's just a 4/5 that hits hard. It's something to look out for. Could be wrong, though. In second, we have Planetary Bombardment. This is a 6-cost red. It says deal 8 indirect damage to a player. If you control a capital ship, deal 12 indirect instead. This card kind of terrifies me in a sense. 8 burn from the hand is nothing to laugh at, even if you don't have a capital ship. And then if you do, you're getting 12 burn from the hand. Granted, they get to assign it, right? But even if they don't hit their base, like, spreading out 12 damage to a unit, that's like the biggest overwhelming barrage that you'll probably ever see in general. And overwhelming barrage is generally a blowout, right? This card can be terrifying, especially paired with the Devastator or things like that too, that let you pick where you want your stuff. I don't know for sure if it makes its way into certain decks that aren't on Devastator, or like a big capital ship package in general. However, it could, right? Like, it could give you the edge against certain control matchups that, like, oh, what are you going to do? Take, 12 indirect damage. Like, you don't have a lot of units to soak that up. This card's kind of terrifying, to be honest. Who knows? We'll see how it pans out. But I think the problem I've seen so far with the Piet deck is it kind of struggles against aggro. However, I think they will adjust a way around it, and then once they do, this card gets super terrifying. And last but not least, at number 1, we have the Devastator. This is an 8-cost red-black spaceship. It's a 9/6. It's also a capital ship for that bombardment. It says you assign all indirect damage you deal to opponents, and when played, deal 4 indirect damage to each opponent. I just think this card gives a lot of options to a lot of decks, is kind of the thing. Like, obviously in Piet, right, it can come out on 6. You could play it in Django to basically, you need a top end for Django, right? You play this, you can deal 4 indirect damage. You get to choose where it goes. So you can clear something, you can do 4 to their base. If you have your Django out, you could technically deal 4 indirect to 4 different units and tap them all with Django at the same time. I think this card just gives way to so many options. Obviously, also with Boba Fett, I forgot to mention the new Boba Fett, right, who's very indirect damage focused. This card turns all your indirect damage into directed damage. I think this card's going to be a house. It's definitely one I would be trying to pick up for, like, whatever they're going to sell for, right? I think it'll obviously pre-sale prices are generally pretty jacked up, but I think if this was like a card you pull from like your pre-release or your boxes or whatever it may be, I would definitely hold on to these bad boys. I think all of the top 5 or 6, I think I'd go, like Turbo Laser, Annihilator, Starhawk, Stolen AT, Bombardment, Devastator. I think those are all cards worth holding. The rest of them, however, are a little more debatable. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys this time. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you think my rankings are alright too. Make sure to comment down below. Let me know. I'm open for debate. I'm open for conversation, whatever it may be. I'm always free to chat. Drop a thumbs up for me if you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Peace.